Ladies and gentlemen, cast your minds back, if you will, because most of us enjoy spending time in nature. Most of us, not everyone, but most of us do. Take your mind to a place where you are perhaps walking along a beach. You're feeling the sand scrubbing between your toes. You were rhythmically absorbed in the sound of the ocean pounding against the seashore. And for a period of time there, you felt calm. You felt peaceful. Perhaps some of you may just have a habit of leaving your workplace at lunchtime, pressing save on your computer, and stepping outside and looking for a park, a tree, somewhere shady, somewhere without technology, where you can just sit and be still, breathe the air, feel the breeze on your face, get some sunshine on your face, soak up some vitamin D. Some of you may even regularly go on camping holidays, where you may even get access to an open fireplace, something that's getting increasingly rare and more difficult to do in this day and age. And you may find yourself on occasion being lost, completely immersed in that magical dance that the fire flames bring to life. Now they've got you somewhere in that space, let me ask you one other question. Can any of you recall, whilst in that zone, really hearing a subtle voice, a subtle primal voice that resides in all of us? And I call that the call of the wild. The story I'd like to share with you today is about my first acknowledgement of that call of the wild in my own understanding, and then what I did about it. And that story starts a fair while ago as a young Australian SAS soldier. I was deployed to the north of Australia somewhere in a very remote piece of bush, and I was there assigned on an intelligence gathering mission to observe a track, a simple little used bush track. Not a very glamorous job, a very important one because an entire army was dependent upon the information that we'd send back. But sitting staring at a track is not very exciting. The funny thing is that track was to become one of my greatest teachers. I didn't know it really at the time, I was a bit young, but it was to become an amazing, amazing teacher. Because while I was sitting in that track, concealed in the bush, pretending to be a bush, watching nature go about her daily business, oblivious to my presence, I saw things that most people just don't have time in our busy lives to take any note of. I saw the rhythms of that little space, that one little section of bush in the middle of nowhere. It showed itself completely to me. And because I had eyes that were ready to open and see it, I was able to actually make some sense of it. And it had an impact. So to give you a greater insight as to what I'm talking about, if you can imagine peering through the bush from your camouflage position, intently observing all the aspects of that track, you can put yourself in a space there where you can see the small creatures, the ants, the flies, the insects, all the stuff that we kind of don't really like to talk about, but it's all there. And it's all life, and it's all about being in that space. And it accepts you because you're so part of the landscape at that moment. So much so that often you'd be sitting there and a small bird would be dancing along the muzzle of your rifle, staring deeply into your eyes, just trying to figure out what kind of crazy tree you are. Let me fast forward you now some 10 years or so. I've now left that jungle and I've moved to the corporate jungle. I'm still using my experience that I've gained in military service. And I'm still doing what I think is useful for the community. I'm still trying to build resilient organisations. So I'm teaching people to be self-reliant, and I'm teaching corporations to be reliant on their own resources so they can handle things better when things go wrong. At first, that feels like a really useful occupation, and I'm content. As time goes by, I go back to clients again and again, and I see that things aren't progressing. Change isn't being absorbed. Some of the recommendations I'm making are getting resistance. And that starts to disenchant me. And I start to question why I'm doing this. Is it time for a change? And one of the things that happens when you go through that kind of moment is you start to deal with stressed out people all the time. And their stress becomes your stress. One too many meetings about talking about meetings, about talking about other meetings and more meetings, and let's discuss the last meeting we had that didn't go anywhere. You get frustrated. You start to find yourselves questioning other aspects of your lifestyle. You find yourself noting that you're spending a lot of time away from your loved ones. You're spending time eating bad food, drinking too much coffee. There's nods here. Everyone's resonating with this. This is the way we live our modern life. We sit in meetings, we've got technology driving us. And it's just one of those moments where you go, something's not gelling with me. And whenever I've had that type of experience in my life, I go on what's called a walkabout. It's a spiritual journey. It's a chance to get outside, away from the rat race, and to just release my mind for a period of time, to let things just calm and slow. It's something that we do very poorly in this very busy modern world. So I don't take very much with me. I live off the land, and I just walk wherever my feet decide to take me. And that's important, because there's no need to have a destination when you go and walk about. And I remember sitting at a campfire alone in the middle of some remote section of bush somewhere. I could never give you a location. And I remember looking up at the sky above me and being totally absorbed in that inky blackness up there. Just enthralled, like a small child would be, the first time they ever look up and see the stars. And I remember going, wow, they're blinking at me. They're telling me something. They're giving me that answer I'm after. And it did come. That clarity arrived. And that clarity was to move from the corporate jungle back to the natural jungle. And so that's what I did. And as a consequence, I began taking people on journeys. Those journeys were to open their hearts, open their minds to those very basic things, to the very basics of nature. And it's not so remote from us. Even when we live in a city, we evolved in the natural world. At least about 3 million odd years of it was in a natural setting. It's only been a relatively short period of time where we had concrete buildings and a concrete landscape around us. So there's a lot of hard wiring in here that still exists, and it's easy to activate it. All it requires is to be in nature and to open your heart and your mind to it. So I take people through survival training. Why survival training as a vehicle, do you think? Let me tell you. Because survival training breaks life down into 4 things: shelter, water, fire, and food. Just 4 things to think about in the whole course of your day, and to worry about a bit at night. But by just focusing on those 4 simple things, everything else goes away for a period of time. Some may call it escapism. I call it mindfulness. And it changes people. It changes people in so many ways. I see them decompress literally before my eyes, and it's an amazing event to watch. One guy that really stood out was a student of mine. His name was Mick. Mick came to us, and like so many of us in the modern world, he had challenges with his health, he had stresses at work, his relationships were in a bad place, and he had fears. We all have fears. But Mick did something brave. Mick faced his fears right in the face, right in the eyes. He just stared them down. And by conquering his fears, by being immersed in this wilderness environment, he became a different person. And how long would that take, you might say? This shelter was built by Mick. How long do you think you could live in a shelter like that? A couple of days? A week? Any takers for 2 weeks? What about 4 months? A grass hut, open on one side in the middle of winter. Not very tempting? Well, Mick lived that way for 4 months. He was braving the elements. He was in the rawness of nature. And as a consequence, nature responded and showed him ways to deal with the challenges he had beset for himself. That's a transformative power. And when Mick left us, he was a completely different guy. He walked with confidence. He talked with confidence. And he'd conquered his fears. And when a person conquers their fears, they are a different person. They have that ring of, I can do anything. And that's what Mick was exactly like when he walked away from us. So that's become my job. My journey is to take people like Mick and get them back into the natural space. To get them out of their state of fear, that it's all out there to hurt us, that it's hostile, that it's not home. And remind people to be in awe of nature. We are nature. We're not separate from it. Even the most urban-based of us seeks out a park, likes green as a colour. We crave nature's loving touch. It's an amazing thing. All it takes is a shift of your awareness, and you can become happy so quickly. There's such a therapeutic value in being immersed in the wilderness. I call it green therapy on my courses, and when I'm putting people through that experience, wilderness immersion, green therapy, they're words that really resonate with people. Why? Because we are still an animal, a very clever one, and we like to think that we're a little bit different to the other guys. We walk on 2 legs, don't we? And stuff like that. But we're still animals. We're base animals. We still require those same fundamental 4 items to exist each day. And if we take the electricity away and the convenience shops away and the cars away, that's what we're left with. 4 things that we've got to think about. And that's what survival training is about, reminding us of that baseness of life. So what's in it for you? The thing that I want to talk to you about most is that each one of you can do this. You don't need to go and live in a hut for 4 months. You can do this anywhere, anytime. There are so many clever architects who have designed green spaces into our urban cities. Any of those will allow you just to connect once more to Mother Earth. And as soon as you do that, Mother Earth will share her wisdom and magic with you. And it's a transformative experience. My friends, I'm a warrior. I'm schooled in the arts of war. I come from a man versus wild background. Mission focused, task focused, get that done, Sergeant Hungerford. And through this immersion in the wilderness, I've completely changed. It's changed the way I view the world. I've softened and I've become a peaceful warrior. And if it can be that powerful with someone as hardline as me, imagine what it can do in your own lives. Just find some grass, find a tree, pay attention to your senses. That's language that comes from Mother Nature. And most of all, ladies and gentlemen, the thing that you'll get out of all of this connection, this reconnection, and responding to this subtle call of the wild that you'll feel when you start listening, is a sense of stillness. And in a world gone crazy with technology, stillness is that thing that some of us just desperately need. Just a moment's pause, just a little bit of a break from all those voices that never stop in our heads. And Mother Nature, she's your friend. She wants to share stillness with you. You've just got to open your eyes and just embrace her. Understand that we're not separate from nature. We are part of nature. My friends, I'll leave you with this one thought. If you can tune in to the natural world, you will become more than you are now. You'll become a better person. Your friends and your children will love you for it. And it's not beyond reach. All you've got to do is one simple thing. That's dare to heed the call of the wild. Thank you.